and be its chief and judge. Root in Ortiz de Zuniga. That don't sound good. Zuniga. 1975.
Yay.
This president opened the way for other free blacks and foreshadowed Spanish practice in the Americas of enacting dominion through natural... Well, I cut that bit off. But basically for them to be able to go to the Americas as free.
You know when they say like civilized blacks and how the Indians were savages.
Right. You're getting it now. So let me just make this clear.
So they're bringing them lot over to make us more civilized.
Right. So let me just make it clear.
Palatable.
If you didn't catch it, I'm afraid I have to tell you again. Right. So African slaves were an important source of hard and skilled labour in Spanish mines and agriculture and in Spanish port cities. Although excluded from Spanish guilds because they were African, I'd like to keep saying it, yeah? Africans were also artisans and petty merchants and domestic servants in Spanish households. In all these capacities, they worked alongside slaves of diverse religious and ethnic backgrounds, including Jews and Muslims, Egyptians, Syrians, Greeks, Russians, Sardinians, and Spaniards. So the African is not an Egyptian, they're not a Jew, they're not a Muslim, they're not Syrian, they're not Greeks, they're not Russians, and they're not Spaniards. And the reason why I'm saying that is because everybody's jumping on board about who Jews are right now. And I don't think people fully understand how many Jews and how many descendants of Jews and how many Jewish of the Jewish and the ish they are. In fact, they're not hardly a Jew at all.
Please, begging it.
Right? Now, I am very aware that certain elders are talking about their history of being a Jew in Africa. I've seen videos of people talking, right? And especially Americans being sycophant because you don't know who you are.
Please.
Listening to it. And I'm not going to say it's being purposely done, right? You might just not be aware. But keep listening and you'll understand why. When you say you're a Jew, just like I said, when people say they're from Egypt, ask them what Egypt. When somebody says they're Caucasian, ask them which Caucasian, because I will read something like that, about that out to you. Because if you go right now and type it in Google, Caucasian origins, it will tell you it depends which era you come from. Why is that, Eden?
The Circassian.
Because there are black Caucasians and white Caucasians in short.
So
oh, you don't like the sound of that, do you? Right, okay. So I shall continue.
I digress.
I shall digress. Oh, okay.
Wow.
So this book is called South African Jews and the Apartheid Crisis by Gideon Shimoni. The widespread eruptions of unrest in South Africa in the 1980s have focused attention on various aspects of society, including its small but influential Jewish community. That community occupies a special place within South Africa itself and also on the worldwide contemporary Jewish scene. In the South African context, Jews have been very important in the economic and cultural development of the country. At the same time, they have been prominent in manifestations of resistance to the apartheid system by which the whites have dominated the society as a whole. In the Jewish context, the situation of South African Jews is highly unusual. A Jewish community that shares its caste-like status of the privileged in a society based upon a system of legalized racial discrimination. The distinctiveness of South African Jewry. In 1987, the estimated 115 Jews of South Africa constituted no more than 1/2 of 1% of the country's composite population. consisting of 19.7 million blacks. Here we go again. Didn't say African, it says blacks. 4.9 million whites, 3.3 million coloureds, people of mixed race, and 900,000 Asians, in brackets mainly Indians. Jews belonged inherently to the dominant white minority, forming 2.3% of the total, because to do with the whole, we class you as white, we class you as...
Yeah.
Right. As for the history of the community, it began as an incidental offshoot of British Jewry in the 19th century, was consolidated by a broad wave of immigration from Eastern Europe between 1880 and 1930, and was finally augmented by a small influx numbering some 6,000 of Central European Jews fleeing the Hitler's tyranny in the 1930s. South African Zionism was deeply involved in a local community life. It remained the preeminent ideological orientation of South African Jewry, providing the anchor for Jewish ethnicity no less important than the synagogue for the Jewish religiosity. Jewish immigrants to South Africa belonged from the outset to the privileged white segment and normally lived their lives within the confines, exempt by virtue of skin colour from discrimination suffered by all non-whites. They enjoyed full civic rights in the parliamentary democracy of the whites, outside of the economic sphere in which, in common with all whites, they related to other segments of society as masters to servants. So also what it says in this book is the South Africans were very fixated on this race thing. So when the Jews turned up with, because the thing about the whole Jewish thing is, okay, so we showed you that picture of King James who killed the Moors, and you saw the black man falling into the floor, and that picture in itself was telling us everything from the start. First of all, it was telling us, so there were black people in the same era when white people were reigning. So all these pictures, and you only ever see whites. It is clearly purposefully done.
Of course, even the paintings.
It's done on purpose, clearly.
How can you spend like 24 hours trying to paint Queen Elizabeth, but whenever there's a black person in the picture,
you can't find them.
And
you notice that when you start looking for people, say it's 16 something, you'll find a lovely picture of a white person, and then suddenly
with hella detail.
Yeah, there's no picture for other people, and all them people that you can't find are without doubt black. So what I'm saying is that picture that we kept seeing, when we say stuff's in your face, it's in your face. The Moor is the Spaniard. They're not African. They are the black Muslim, yeah, and they had issues with the French, who are depicted as the Jews, who are also called Huguenots, if you did not know. But when you hear things about the Huguenots, you only see white people.